Alright, now I want to take this time to talk about a lesser known, not as well developed, kind of a lackluster From Software game, but still From Software game altogether, called Sekiro. Now, Sekiro has, interesting combat, interesting gameplay. To a certain extent, it's a little lackluster. It's no Dark Souls 2, but it's there. So, when talking about the optimal way to play the game, most people tend to think that you would play a From Software game with a controller because the games originally came out on console. Now, that isn't necessarily the truth. Would you play a Call of Duty game with a controller? No. COD generally is played with keyboard and mouse on PC, so why are these games any different? Now, people like to say, oh, well, Sekiro's a third-person action game, and Dark Souls is a third-person action RPG. Those games still play better with a keyboard and mouse. It's just the more optimal way to play, especially for PC gamers. Less hassle with the controller, more intuitive inputs. It honestly is the way to play. Now, I've played up to Genichiro with keyboard and mouse, and let me just say, my experience has been decent with the controls. It's actually been more than decent. The controls are very fluid, very well. The game design, on the other hand, has been extremely lackluster and frankly not up to par with Dark Souls 2 and really any other From Software thing up to this point. From Software, I think, has fallen off the wagon, especially with their new IP Elden Ring coming out, which looks to be actually pretty bad. I mean, the game will never come out, but it still looks bad. Now, with Sekiro keyboard and mouse, the main thing to take away is you're getting more of a feel on how the game is actually meant to be played. The blocking, the attacking, the use of items, the dodging is more precise. Things are more precise. Your inputs are more precise. Your movement is more fluid. The action is more fluid. The action almost gets stripped away when using a controller. If you want to talk about fluidity, you want to talk about smooth actions, smooth graphics, smooth transitions. While using a keyboard and mouse, you get all of those things. It's not clunky, it's not this or that, it's not slow, because everything is really legitimately, without a doubt, right at your fingertips. With one press of a key away, boom, you can use an item, you can heal, you can dash, you can dodge, you can attack by clicking the mouse, you can block by clicking right on the mouse. All of these things add to the experience, but then again, I feel Sekiro is always meant to be played with a keyboard and mouse. I don't understand what the argument that From Software games shall be played with a controller and how keyboard and mouse is this taboo style of play. It's not, honestly. I've played up to Genichiro, like I've said, with keyboard and mouse, and I gotta be honest, it's not bad at all. It's actually the preferred way to play. It's fluid, the action's fluid, the bosses are easier, it makes the gameplay easier, makes the difficulty less intense. From Software isn't necessarily known for their difficult games, but Sekiro, it's just made less difficult with keyboard and mouse, while other games, it generally, from Software, keyboard and mouse makes them almost unplayably easy. With Sekiro, makes it easy to a certain extent, even though that it's almost that the game's difficulty doesn't necessarily come from the fact that you do anything wrong. I mean, you're using a keyboard and mouse. Your inputs are as precise as ever. It's more the game's fault for the fact that it was poorly designed and poorly envisioned from Software. I don't know what Miyazaki was smoking in the studio when making this shit, but honestly, it's a backstep from when. It's a backstep from Dark Souls 2. I mean, Dark Souls 3 was a backstep. Bloodborne was an even bigger leap back, but this game is just almost feels like he's kind of kidding with us at this point. Especially with how bad it is to use a controller on this game. You know, it's clunky, the inputs aren't precise, the way that you move isn't precise, the way that you grapple isn't precise. Grappling keyboard and mouse is actually easier, in my opinion, than controller, because it's easier to almost just move your finger, hit the key. Same with the healing, move your finger, hit the key. Everything is really at like a little movement of your finger away, while with a controller it's just a whole nother mess. I like to talk about how the stigma of keyboard and mouse kind of painted Sekiro as this super difficult game, when really people are just playing it wrong. Keyboard and mouse actually makes it superiorly easy comparative to any other really game in this action genre. While Sekiro I would label less as an action game and more of a strategy game, it doesn't generally challenge me as much as it would if I was using a controller. Keyboard is the optimal way to play because it gives you that almost sense of I can do this sense of sure, like, security in your actions, in the sense of I would say security, and you know everything is pretty precise. You're not going to get any lag, you're not going to get any disconnecting. You're honestly just going to get the way how the game was supposed to be played. Keyboard and mouse is something that I feel everybody should experience at least once, if not just play the whole game with it. I mean, I wouldn't play the game if I were you. It's not great. It's more From Software trying to push something out and call it a good game. Like, the only reason it won Game of the Year is because every other game was equally as bad. I mean, you didn't have much. And it's no Dark Souls 2. It's really... It's a poor representation of a From Software game, but playing it with keyboard and mouse just makes it a little bit more palatable, in my opinion, than other From Software games. It just gives it a better time, especially with how the controls are laid out with keyboard and mouse. You don't necessarily have to do any rebinding. Everything's already pretty simplistic from the get-go. Like, once you boot up the game and once you get everything going, playing with keyboard and mouse makes more sense logistically than playing with other things. But then again, I feel Sekiro should be played in moderation because of how frustratingly bad it is. It's not well designed at all. So, in my opinion, I'd rather just play a little bit, stop, play a little bit, stop, play a little bit, stop, play a little bit, stop. I feel like if you sit there for too long with this game, you'll end up just being like, wow, this is so poorly designed, I never want to play again. Which, I totally understand if you feel like that. I felt like that. You know, playing with a keyboard and mouse, I feel, helped my experience a little bit more. It made me warm up to this game a tiny bit more. But then again, it wasn't anything where I was like, oh, this makes the experience 12 times better. Just made it a smidge better. Made things a little bit easier for me to take than other necessarily games. Now, when talking about the bullshit in this game, you're going to be looking at this game and thinking you're playing Dark Souls 3 again. They're very similar. Basically almost the same game. In layout and character animations and really everything. It's almost like From Software is kind of just repackaging at this point. And it seems to be their game plan for this, like, for the future, especially with Elden Ring, looking to just be the exact same thing as Bloodborne, but just with, like, lighter shades of colors. Now, it's almost getting to the point where I feel like From Software is going to take, like, a yearly release schedule, which is not necessarily going to be helpful to their game plan. I mean, game companies should be doing that with games. You should get yearly IPs, but for them, the quality doesn't match up to the quantity. There's so many of these games, and the majority of them are shit. So it almost makes it worse, in my opinion, to play. That's all I gotta say.